Hey, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Message, and you're listening to I Am Here. Yo, so welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Message, and today's episode is all about the fashion modeling industry and the impact it has on Black mental health. Now, as a member of the African American community, I know that representation matters, and I want to bring attention to an issue that isn't often talked about. According to a study published in the Journal of Racial and Ethnic Health Disparities, Black models are more likely to experience discrimination and microaggressions in the fashion industry. This includes being told to straighten their hair, being asked to change their skin color by tanning, being passed over for certain jobs because of their race, or even being considered for those jobs in the first place. And it's not just about discrimination on a job. The pressure to conform to Eurocentric beauty standards can also take a toll on Black models' mental health. A study published in the International Journal of Eating Disorders found that Black models were more likely to experience body dissatisfaction and disordered eating than white models. But it's not all bad news. There's also positive examples of representation in the industry. Today, I'm joined by my friend Daniel Cruz, who is a Black model and has been in the industry for many years. So Daniel, thanks for joining us today. I'm gonna refer to him as DC because, we have a long history together. We grew up together, went to the same school, and I know him as a model in the industry, and I figured he'd be one of the good people to give good insight on it. So tell the listeners about yourself.
Oh man, I'm glad I could be here. I'm glad you're doing this, man, because we talked about it a little bit on the phone, and we got a lot of content here. So, but again, my name is Daniel Cruz. My people know me as DC. But yeah, I've been doing this for some time now. I started really young. My father was a model back in the day. He was from New York, so he modeled in New York. And then my parents moved to South Florida right before I was born, and then they separated. So my mom kind of knew the business. She got me and my older sister into it. The first job I did, I was 2 years old, and that job was like for Kmart. So shout out to Kmart, for putting me on first to get to me. But yeah, so I'm 33 now, with a couple of years taken out of that equation for braces and for rap music.
So for those of you that don't know, Daniel and I have a history of making music together. Right now, you can still find my music on Spotify as well as Daniel Cruz.
Yeah.
Spotify, well, all major music platforms. But D, you were talking about your parents. What's the cultural background of your parents so they can kind of get an idea of the culture that you grew up with?
That's a good question, man, because it's gonna set the tone for like a lot of what I'm gonna say. My father is Puerto Rican, but he was born in Bushwick, New York, which ironically is where I live now. My mother's from Haiti. She was born in Haiti, and she came to the States. She came to the States when she was like really young, and so we were the first generation of Haitian Americans, even though we didn't really look at ourselves that way per se. It was definitely a side that I identified with a lot more, because that's the side that I grew up with. So Haitian, Puerto Rican, and until I do my 23andMe That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, so you got the cultural combination of Haitian and Puerto Rican. For those of
Yeah.
you that don't know, my cultural background is Jamaican.
Boop, boop.
Yeah, so we all island people here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Already.
so the journey that you took to be a black model, when did you realize you were a black model? Let's say that.
When did I realize I was a black model?
Meaning, is there a time when you realize like my modeling experience as a black person is different than what's going on around me? Or did that even happen?
You know what's so weird? I feel like I've lived so many different stages of just being in this industry and so many different identities too, in a weird way. So when I started off in Miami modeling as a kid, when you're that young, or when I was that young at least, I wasn't really thinking about race or racism. I feel like that's the time right before we got introduced to all these different concepts. And so I didn't really think about it much back then, but I felt like, Daniel Cruz, this model in Miami, a lot of the jobs were for Spanish kids. And so at the time, I guess that made me feel more Spanish, and then it wasn't until I got older and I started really learning about the world around me and how things work and how things are structured. Started paying attention more, and then I would go to castings and I would realize that they're obviously casting for specific ethnic groups. And, so you'll have a bunch of white people, you'll have a few ethnically ambiguous people, and then you'll have African American or otherwise black people of darker skin tones. But it wasn't until then that I started realizing that there's this sort of separation because of the way, I guess, marketing works, Everyone has to sort of check a box. Everyone has to get that certain person to sell to that certain group of people. So these are things that I grew up sort of understanding, they're here to sell a product. So this is sort of how it works. I didn't really take too much offense to it at that point because it was more understanding. We'll get into it more, but I felt like when I started to realize that, okay, not only, I know I'm black, I know I'm Haitian, but I started to realize how that makes people look at me on set or at castings or when I'm getting hair and makeup, all of this stuff, when I'm getting wardrobe. You start to see it a lot more than in little ways that I can elaborate on if you choose.
Yeah, we can elaborate on that. Do you think that the demographic that these agencies or whoever these castings are going to, the demographic is for the skin tone, or is it for the personality? Because I think personally in business a more effective approach would be to go after the personality type in the culture as opposed to their skin tone on film.
Yeah, you would think.
That's my opinion. But it seems to me, learning from what you're saying, it seems to me that people are selected specifically by their tone of skin.
It's not only that, and I want to be clear about that. A large part of it is about your personality. You can't find one casting in which they're not looking for your personality to see what you're like, So that's a big part of it. It all kind of like goes into the same process of, you know, whoever's gonna get booked. It's like they're looking for your personality, but they're also looking for what you look like and how you act and how you talk and all that kind of stuff, how you dress. So it's all encompassing, but at the same time, they're still trying to sell that product to different demographics of their own choosing. So you're gonna have that. And in modeling, see, modeling, there's only so much personality you can bring because they're snapshots. You know what I mean? It's a lot different when I do TV stuff, of course, because they're asking you to perform on camera. They're asking you to either do lines or whatever movements or dances. That's different. But modeling is like, you got just a little bit to work with as far as showing your personality. A lot of it is going to come down to your looks, and that's just pretty obvious. But that's what it is.
And it coming down to your looks, does that mean that the representation and inclusivity of Black models is there? Are Black models underrepresented? For meaning, even regardless of how many castings that a model, a Black model or African American model, a person of a darker skin tone gets, those that are in those castings are they underrepresented compared to?
I feel like the quiet part that doesn't get said out loud is that Black and brown people, it's been a little bit different more recently, but Black and brown people are underrepresented across the board in this industry. It's not just the models, it's like we're talking about mental health and what it feels like to be in my position and in my situation, usually like one of the only Black or brown people on set. That's not always the case, but it's also well known. You know, if I were to walk on set and a majority of people were Black and brown, unfortunately, that would be new, you know. Usually it's the other way around. And so it's across the board. I could speak better to my own experience, but I guess I can't really talk about my experience without talking about what just that landscape tells me when I'm navigating through this work process.
So my question is, can you share any particular instances where you witnessed the impact of the lack of representation, or actually better yet, the impact of how did people treat you, or did you notice the difference in how people treated you on set or on castings compared to your compadres?
So it's never quite been anything overt. I'm really blessed that I'm able to like work with really cool people, really awesome people from all different backgrounds. And that's not just race, that's religion, gender, sexual orientation, all different types of people work in my industry. And that's what makes it really fun, because you have so many different ideas and so many different styles and ways of life that just for some strange reason end up working together on a specific set. And I meet a lot of people who are really cool and really nice too. I've never felt, and I want to be clear about this, I've never felt overtly disrespected on set. I've never felt overtly insulted. It's a lot more subtle. But I say that, but I don't want to minimize the impact, because I guess the question is how it impacts me. And it impacts me on a, like, it's more of a slow burn. Let's put it like that. It's not something that I struggle with and like struggle to get through the day with. Thankfully, but when it does happen, it's very subtle, and it comes down to the little things. It's like you show up on set, okay, cool. I'm the the ethnically ambiguous person. This is my ethnically ambiguous wife, set wife. These are our kids, or whatever the case. And because everyone on set's cool, it's like they ask me questions like, "What music do you want to play?" Now I have to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because some sets are like a little more progressive and people literally play trap music. Some sets play classic rock music. Some sets play more new age stuff, electronic. It's all over the place, and that speaks to the difference in like just people that I work with. But you also have to be careful when you navigate that, because I have this internal moment where I'm always like, okay, what do I really want to listen to? Sometimes that's a hip hop record. Sometimes that's a rock record. Sometimes it's something else. And it's like, I find myself asking myself, like, am I choosing what I'm choosing right now to diminish sort of who I am or how I'm looked at? You know what I mean? So if I like play this trap music now, am I like proving that, I'm Black and I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm like, am I doing it because I want to hear it at that moment, or am I doing it to project an image of myself? The same is true if I want to listen to, like, a lot of times I'll tell them to put on Phoenix, one of my favorite bands of all time, and a lot of times that's just the type of stuff I want to hear. And I found myself going, am I doing this to sort of cater to my lighter side of how I'm being looked at right now? Because I know I'm a lot of things ethnically that I don't even know I am. I feel like a lot of different things, but sometimes I just want to hear something, and it's like, what is making me choose this? So it's like little things like that people don't really think about. And then I'll go to hair and makeup, and this is a big thing. I started to realize that people don't understand my hair on set. They just don't. And not just, I shouldn't paint with a broad brush, because some people do, but my experience has been that a lot of times it's better if I just do that at home, wake up 2 hours earlier, make sure I'm good to go, so that when I get on set, they don't look at my hair and go, I have to do something. 9 times out of 10, they go, oh, you're good to go, I don't need to touch your hair. And I'm like, thank God, because my experience has been sometimes not so good. Sometimes, just trying to figure out my hair, which God bless him, I'm figuring out myself every day, and I've figured out my hair over the course of like many years of experimenting. But I can't put that on them, and sometimes they'll put like some weird stuff in my hair, and it's just like, what's happening? It'll be like ocean water or like salt water, or like, they'll just make my hair into a very interesting shape, and I have to go out there and shoot like that. So it's like, that's when it starts to become pretty uncomfortable. So I've learned to kind of circumvent that by just doing that on my own. It makes you work a little harder, but at the same time, it makes it easier, air quotes, for everybody else.
So you drew two very interesting points. When it comes to the hair, I feel that what's being said is that the industry needs to educate themselves on. America's a vast melting pot of culture, and us being Black in America and having this long history, you think that, and especially as far as us being a part of the entertainment industry, better yet, fashion industry, you think that there'd be more understanding of how to utilize taking care of a black person's hair. If you were to have dreadlocks, would they know what to do on set with you if you came in with dreadlocks and they wanted to have a certain look? You know?
Yeah.
And the other point that you drew was about the because I personally feel this way too. For example, if I were to have a Jamaican restaurant and I had some guests come in and I'm blasting classic rock in the Jamaican restaurant, I'm pretty sure that there would be some questions raised. Some questions raised by that, because
granted, island people have a very wide range of interests and very eclectic taste, but that would be an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah. Whether it be Sting or Lionel Richie or whatever it is. But like, let's say it's classic, or let's say it's like Black Sabbath, blasting Black Sabbath, and you have some guests come in, you know, guests are gonna look at that and say, why isn't this person in line with what I believe their culture is? You know, I think that idea that we have to be a monolith at all times is kind of what makes us understanding each other kind of bizarre, because we're not.
Yeah.
In our reality, we're a mix of cultures. You know, we're Jamaicans, we're Haitians, we're Puerto Ricans, we're from Ghana, we're from Italy, we're from, you know, so.
We're also from a lot of families that are like not traditional families. So like my family, I was raised with a stepfather who's from Belize. I grew up on classic reggae music and like going to the islands and eating island food and all of that. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's why, you know, island people gravitate towards each other in the end. But yeah, that's a big part too.
Yeah, Belize, big up yourself. Big up yourself.
Yeah.
So now, how do you envision, like, now that we're here, what kind of progress do you see, or have you seen any progress, in how you are affected by the industry and with your mental health? Like, what have you been doing to cope with everything? What steps have you been taking for your mental health to accommodate what you do for a living?
So this is a job that can really be a trip psychologically. It's a job where you gotta hear a lot of no's. I know that sounds cliche, but we hear it a lot. We don't even hear no's, really. It's like, if you don't get the job, you just never know. You never hear about it again. Yeah. Sometimes you'll have it'll be sporadic, you know. You have a week where you do nothing but work, followed by a long season of like maybe a month or two, you know, where you do very little or no work. And thankfully, I'm able to still stay busy overall, but it's in those moments of little moments of just no things really going on that I found it's important for me to really stay grounded. And so in between I call that like the in-between time. 5% of my life is probably on set. Other 95% is like either getting ready for set or getting myself right or living the rest of my life, you know. We're just like putting little things into practice to keep me grounded. Like I said, meditation has become a huge part of my life. I honestly don't remember what I was like before then, and I don't even really want to because it was probably really scatterbrained and really not grounded. But that's helped a lot. My spirituality, of course, is the biggest thing. Our relationship with God, and knowing that, you know, I don't have to just go through life getting accepted or being denied. It's part of a bigger plan. And I'm just here to show up and love people and love God and love life and do my job the best way I can. So that's been a really helpful way to look at it. It's not how I always did look at it. It was, I remember when I was a lot younger and feeling a lot more pressure. And that stuff comes through at the castings and, you know, on set, all this stuff when you're just like trying too hard. You're not, you know, you're speeding through it, whatever. I've learned to just slow down and sort of just enjoy the process, because everyone's just there to work and get through it and have a good shoot or a good casting or whatever. So just stand prayed up, stand ready and keeping my mind right, man. That's been huge. It's been everything.
Can you recommend any other than meditation, which I 100% agree with? And in this podcast, you can find in some episodes where I take you through some meditation. Can you recommend any resources like books, websites, or places, or things to do that has helped you as a Black model in the industry? It doesn't have to be particularly for being a model, but what do you do? What do you do to help?
Yeah, man. So I know meditation sounds daunting to a lot of people, especially if they haven't done it before or haven't done it a lot. It's like, how do you get started? My process is as simple as it's been from day one, which is just, I use the Calm app. Shout out to Calm. They have a lot of different, they got a lot of different resources, a lot of different options. And I usually just do a timed meditation where I just focus on my breathing. Sometimes it's for 30 minutes, sometimes it's for 5 minutes, sometimes it's for 15 minutes. But I try and do that every day. I've gotten into the habit of that, thankfully. So there's that. I've also really started using mass affirmations, which I recommend to really anyone who's trying to get a hold of their internal dialogue. Trying to think positive is not helpful as, an idea all the time. You got to have little tactics to make sure that you're doing that. So that I found,
Stop right there. Are your affirmations personal to you, or is it something that can you share any of them? Like any
both. So I have my own personal affirmations that I like to do right after my meditation. I recommend that because it's the point in which you're the most relaxed. Your subconscious is the most malleable at that point. So you can do it after your meditations as you come back to, your normal life. You can also so I do a mixture of that and mass affirmations while I sleep. I'll go on YouTube, I'll find, 8-hour mass affirmations, something that's very relaxing. And it's good to fall asleep to. And again, as it's the reverse of meditation, because, when you're meditating, you calm your mind and then you do the affirmations of your own. When you're falling asleep, you're calming yourself first, and that's when you're activating those affirmations, so that when you start falling asleep and you relax into that, you're better able to have your subconscious affected by it. So I've been doing that as well. It's a mixture between the two. Those you can find on YouTube. They're all over the place. And that's been really helpful.
Not only can you find them on YouTube, you can actually find them on this podcast. There are some episodes here where you will find some affirmations repeated that I created. I like what you said about the subconscious and the activation, using the affirmations as activation for your mind. I like to use them looking in the mirror
Yeah.
to look at myself, because what a lot of people don't do, and if you think about it, it's been ages and ages where people didn't have mirrors, you know?
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing to look at yourself and look in the mirror and not think about, because we tend to think about how can we make ourselves look better, or
Yeah.
we automatically think about the superficial values. But looking in the mirror
Yeah.
and looking deep into yourself and repeating has helped me, wake up in the morning and say, I'm the king of my domain. And just saying that, I feel my shoulders went up a little bit when I said that.
You straighten up your back, you put your shoulders back, and you get ready to rumble.
Yeah, so when people listen to this, I want you guys to think about, what would you tell yourself if you were a character and you were narrating, what would you tell yourself to repeat to get you in the right mindset to conquer the day,
And I would say I'm really glad you brought that up too, because looking in the mirror is so helpful, man. It helps you to connect not just your words. It gets your vision involved. You start to identify with it more, and it's coming from you, and it's all you know what I mean? So that's really important. Writing down and making your own affirmations too. And there's an app, there's different ways that you can say or record your own affirmations with your voice to play back. That's even better. But yeah, man, I think that if anyone has a question about what their affirmation should be, think about what your worries sound like. What are the things you dwell on most, that you're most afraid of, that you feel like your internal dialogue talks about most? And just come up with something that counteracts that. I'd say that's a good place to start.
Okay, and now that we're about to end, can you think of one quick phrase you can tell a young Black model about to enter the industry?
I would say, take that part of you that some would call your shadow. It's the part of you that you're afraid to show the world, that you might have been not confident with. Become best friends with that person and protect that person and celebrate that person, because you're a manifestation of divine creation. Like, you created this over time. God made this beautiful creation that is you, and you've come this far with that. So I think that's something that's really great to calm your spirit, so you're not nervous. You're not just hinging on, are these people gonna like me or not? Like yourself. You know what I'm talking about? And I'm sure they will too.
So thanks for listening to this episode of I Am Here Mental Health Podcast. I hope you found the information that we shared today to be informative and helpful, and together we can support each other on our mental health journey. Remember, there are resources available to you and your loved ones, and it's important to reach out if needed. I'd like to close this off by reminding you to tell yourself, I'm not in my past, but I learned from it. I'm not in the future, but I am preparing to go there. I am here.